The question I get asked almost more than any other question is, do the off-brand microphones that you review stand up to the name brand microphones that we all know about? Today, we'll put that to the test. I've lined up 3 name brand microphones that you've all heard of and 3 off-brand microphones that many of you on my channel have heard of, but the general masses probably haven't. I've picked 3 notable name brand microphones, starting with the RODE NT1 Signature Series that you're listening to me on now. Also, the RODE PodMic. It has quickly become a podcast favorite. And the Shure SM58. And on the off-brand microphones, we're going to start out with the MOVO VSM-7, Fifine Tank1. And last but not least, Behringer XM8500. This entire time you've been listening to me on RODE's Signature Series NT1. This microphone retails for just $159 US. And it has a build quality that is impeccable, in my opinion. Plus, it comes with all the bells and whistles with a big, beautiful shock mount and pop filter. At $159 US, the Signature Series NT1 is a steal, in my opinion. I love this microphone, and I know a lot of other people that do too. However, it's time to switch over to its off-brand competitor, the MOVO VSM-7. Now I'm on MOVO's VSM-7, and this is what it sounds like. The VSM-7 retails for $124.95 US. But a lot of my subscribers remember when I got this microphone, I paid just $32 or $33. I've tried to make this as comparable as possible. The pad switch is obviously off. It's in flat response mode, and it's in a cardioid polar pattern. So this is what the MOVO VSM-7 sounds like. I'm trying to maintain the same distance. I tried to set the pop filters at the same distance so there wouldn't be any closer miking of either one of them. But this is what the VSM-7 sounds like. What are your thoughts? How do you think it stacks up to the NT1? I'm going to switch back to the NT1 so you get another direct comparison before we move on. All right, I'm back on the NT1 Signature Series. How do you think it stacks up to the MOVO VSM-7? I'm going to save my thoughts till after I've edited with my over-the-ear Behringer headphones on, because in these in-ear monitors, it's really hard to perceive which one is sounding better. So I'm going to do all 3 tests, and then I will come back and give you my thoughts on where I land, and then I'm going to ask you to chime in the comments, where do you stand? In this matchup of name brand versus off-brand, this is the only time in this competition where the off-brand microphone costs more than the name brand microphone. The PodMic costs just $99 US, and it is built like a tank. So there's no switches and stuff on this microphone. I'm trying to keep everything even in this competition, so I'm using the RODE PodMic without any type of windscreen on it, because we all know that the RODE PodMic USB made these cool windscreens famous, and they fit perfectly, obviously, on the original RODE PodMics. So you can add some life to them by choosing colors, or you can stick with black. Like I have a black one, I have a white one, and I'll probably have all the colors at some point. So it's kind of a cool accessory to add on. But I'm starting to see this more and more in podcast studios because it is a super high quality build microphone. And it's also extremely cheap to build out a studio. If you have 4 people, you're talking $400, whereas a Shure SM7B by itself is going to be $400 alone, if not a little bit more with the price increases at the time of this recording. But this is the RODE PodMic, built like a tank, and just $99 US. I'm going to switch over to the Fifine Tank1. Even in these in-ear monitors, I can tell a distinct sound difference between the 2 microphones. I'm not saying if one is better or worse, but I'm just saying I can notice a drastic change in the sound quality. I have all the switches turned to the flat mode because it's not fair if a mic has switches to compare it to a mic that doesn't have switches and have other stuff engaged. So there's no processing on the RODECaster video. I've tried to balance the volume as close as humanly possible. I'm working each microphone at the same distance, and this is what the Fifine Tank1 sounds like. In my review of this microphone, if you haven't seen it, I think this mic has an extremely smooth sound. There's just nothing, in my opinion, that's really harsh to it. And also, it doesn't sound like you're talking into a barrel like some of these microphones can sound like when they try to accentuate the low end a little too much. And the Tank 1 is aesthetically pleasing, just like the RODE PodMic, in my opinion. It is built like a heavyweight tank. The only exception with all these microphones, I would have to say, except for the Shure microphones, are these plastic knobs. I think Shure's the only one that gets the knobs 100% correct. But how do you like the sound comparison of the Tank 1 from Fifine versus the RODE PodMic? In a minute, I'll switch back to the RODE PodMic OG for a final comparison between these two. But the Tank 1 retails for $129.99. In these three matchups, this is the one case where the off-brand microphone costs more than the brand name. Is that warranted? You'll have to be the judge of that in the comments below. I think it's fairly clear that Fifine gained some inspiration from looking at the PodMic and maybe a combination of the SM7B as well with the switches. It's got the roll-off switch and then the mid-boost. Every company takes inspiration out there, but Fifine has continued to raise the bar on every release they've done. I think they're just getting better and better. I've had some critical feedback of them in the past on various things I've reviewed on the channel, and in my opinion, they have stepped their game way up. When I got this microphone, I'm going to tell you what, I picked up the box and thought to myself, wow, now that's a substantial microphone. But it is time to switch back to the RODE PodMic and let you get one more comparison between the two. All right, back on the RODE PodMic. How do you like the sound if you're hearing it back to back? How do you like the sound in comparison to the Tank 1? This is the RODE PodMic, the OG RODE PodMic. Personally, I like the RODE PodMic USB better than I do the PodMic OG. For some reason, I feel like there's just a little bit of a sound difference, and the introduction of those beautiful windscreens doesn't hurt either. I apologize if I've created any wind bursts into the microphone in this review, but I was just trying to keep it as fair as possible by not putting stuff over the top of these microphones. But that is going to do it for round 2. Before we get into this final round between the Shure SM58 and the Behringer XM8500, I do think some of the concerns about the off-brand microphone manufacturers had been that they didn't really have a track record, but now you're seeing companies like Fifine and MOVO and Mono just continue to iterate and iterate and iterate on their products, and now you're getting a little bit of longevity on some of these products, and you're able to discern, is this high quality? Is this cheap junk? You know, do I have to throw it away after 2 years, or does it continue to go and go and go? There's some of the microphones from those companies I've had since 2021, but this is the Shure SM58, currently retailing for $109 US, so it's got about a $10 bump increase. A lot of the Shure products did recently here in the United States anyway. And the SM58 has just been a consistent staple microphone in studios, on stage, etc., mostly for singing. But I have a lot of podcast friends who use this for podcasting. Could it be because it's a quarter of the price of the Shure SM7B, or do they truly think it sounds better or just about as good? I'll let you be the judge of that. This is the Shure SM58, and this is what it sounds like. I'm going to switch over to the Behringer XM8500. All right, now I'm back on the Behringer XM8500. I've had this microphone sitting around for quite a while. This is the very first time I've ever put it on the stand and used it, whether on camera or off. I was supposed to do a review of it. There was a subscriber of the channel who just always kept on me about trying this microphone, so I bought one, and it just sat in a box for a while, and then I found out that he passed away, and I just never reviewed it. It has sat in a box or on the desk for months and months and months and months. But this is the first time using it, and this is what it sounds like. It's really hard for me to ascertain what I truly think about this microphone with these in-ear monitors on. Now, Behringer is not technically an off-brand name. It's been around for a long time. However, you're not going to find a Behringer XM8500 in recording studios or on a stage en masse anyway. So this is why I would put it in that category. It's a big underdog when it comes to a comparison like this. The XM8500 retails for just $19.90 US dollars. A while ago, it was $25 even, and then it skyrocketed. I know what I'm about to say is ridiculous, but skyrocketed to 30 some dollars, and then it has free fall and back down to $19.90 at the time of this recording anyway. So how do you think the XM8500 stacks up to the Shure SM58? I've heard a lot of good things about the XM8500, and I'm curious to hear what you think about it on my voice. And definitely when I start editing, I'm really curious to hear the tonality of the microphone to see if I like it as much as I do the SM58, or if it is just a microphone that will sit in the old shelf or in storage somewhere and collect a little dust. That remains to be seen. But it feels like it's pretty well built, and from what I hear sound wise, it doesn't feel like it's harsh in any specific area. But I'll have more details on that after I get done editing. I'm going to switch back to the Shure SM58 for the remainder of this comparison. All right, I'm back on the Shure SM58. How does it sound in comparison to the Behringer XM8500? I can't wait to dive into the comment section, because you always get a variety of opinions, and there's nothing wrong with that. So let me know in the comments, what exactly are you hearing in comparison between these two microphones? So I'm going to head off, and I'll probably start editing these comparisons over the next couple of days, and I'm going to really think about, what am I hearing? Which one would I go with if I had to pick one? And I am going to pick one in each comparison. I'm not going to waffle and say, well, it depends on this and that. I'm going to say, hey, if I had to go with one, it would be X, Y, or Z. So I can't wait to do that. And then I can't wait to see what you have picked as well. Hank here, and I'm back with the results of the 3 matchups. In the first matchup, the Rode NT1 versus the MOVO VSM-7. I, hands down, would have to go with the NT1 on that competition. The NT1 Signature Series checks all the boxes. Good price, $159. I could use it for podcasting. I could use it for live streaming. I could use it for voiceovers, and I could use it for singing applications. The tonality of the microphone, it lends itself to being a open palette for you to kind of shape it any way you'd like to in post-production. It is one of the most natural sounding microphones I've ever used, and I truly, truly, truly think Rode hit the nail on the head with that one. The accessories and build quality are vastly superior to the VSM-7. But if you wanted to use the VSM-7 for podcasting and streaming, it would fit in those wheelhouses. I wouldn't use it for music or voiceover. It's just got like a boxy sound to it to me. And so you'd have to cut that out and tailor it this way and tailor it that way. And in my opinion, if you have to do all that, it's just not the right mic to choose. So when it comes to round 1, the Rode NT1, I would take 10 out of 10 times over the VSM-7. Next, it was the RODE PodMic versus the Fifine Tank1. In this matchup, it may shock you, but I would take the Tank 1. I think the build quality is fantastic. Now, we don't know, is the microphone going to last you 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, etc.? I'm pretty sure the PodMic will. We don't have that track record yet with the Tank 1. In that 150 and under category, I would say it's the only other microphone that I can think of that is a push when compared to the RODE PodMic, because the RODE PodMic is built exquisitely. And I don't even think it's close on the sound profiles, in my opinion. The Tank 1 straddles that delicate line of warmth without being too muddy or boxy, and then clear without being shrill or having any unpleasing frequencies coming through that I don't like on my particular voice anyway. Whereas the PodMic can end up sounding just a little bit thin in some cases, although the PodMic is excellent when it comes to adding processing, inline processing, or if you're going to do post-production. I've heard people sound just fantastic on it. But with the Tank 1, I feel like I don't have to do anything to it if I didn't want to. Now, I think I could make it even better with a little bit of post-processing. And one of the channel watchers said that if you push hard enough, the PodMic windscreen does fit on the Tank 1. I tried it and it wouldn't go all the way at the time when I was reviewing the Tank 1. So I stopped because I was worried about messing up that beautiful finish. But the person assured me that if I get into it a little bit further and just put a little more pressure on it, it would go on, and it did go on. Now, I wouldn't want to take it off and then put it back on all the time. I think you find the windscreen you really want for it and get that baby on there, at your own risk, of course. I'm not suggesting you do it. You could probably fool many people who aren't paying attention that it has switches on the back, which brings me to the Tank 1 having those switches on the back, which you could activate those to tailor the sound even more. But I think just flat, out of the box, it sounds great. I think it's far superior than the PodMic in sound. So it would be my winner in round 2. In round 3, we had the tried and true Shure SM58 versus the Behringer XM8500. I thought the XM8500 acquitted itself quite well. However, when I was listening back to it over and over and over and over again, it's a sound that I would squarely put into podcasting and live streaming and not so much musical. But to my ears, the Shure SM58 has its place in the music industry for a reason. And it seemed pretty clear to me upon playback that the SM58 is vastly superior for its intended application. And it can carry over to podcasting and streaming, where I would squarely put the Behringer XM8500 solely in podcasting or live streaming. Now, does that mean some budget music maker isn't using the XM8500 for that purpose? I'm sure they are somewhere out there, but I think the SM58 is just synonymous with its musical application, and I would pick it 10 out of 10 times. So those are the microphones I think are the winners, but what do you think? Chime in the comments down below. I'd be happy to read your thoughts on the matter. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let her rip. As always, thank you.